contemporary rulings as to zakat. This is one of the pillars of our religion, of our deen, and something that we should all know how to discharge this responsibility, inshallah. So a note to participants. First of all, this does not constitute any scholarly opinion on my part. I am a student of the Fiqh of Mohamed. I have been a student of the Fiqh of Mohamed for over 25 years, and I am here to convey what I have learned through the course of my studies with my teachers, scholars. Everyone here is encouraged to further develop their understanding of this knowledge under an appropriate scholar. Again, this is an intro to understanding the contemporary rulings of zakat. Right? It's not a comprehensive course, and also because this year, because of the time change, the days are shortening. The time between Dhuhr and Asr is very short. Right? When we do these in the summer months, we have several hours. Right now, the time is very short. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly, inshallah, compared to how we might have done this in the past. So the intended goals of today's seminar: after today's session, everyone here should be able to understand the basic rulings of zakat. Okay, what assets are considered, what assets are not considered, how to calculate. Everyone should understand this. We should also begin to understand the contemporary applications of Sharia, because there are many to zakat, because there are many asset classes that exist today that did not exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? 1400 years ago, there was no cryptocurrency. There was no TFSA and RRSP accounts. There were no rental properties even. Right? So how does the Sharia deal with all of these different types of asset classes, and how do we apply them for our zakat calculation? So this is something we should all be able to do by the end of our session today, inshallah. So we begin with a definition. And the reason why we begin with a definition of zakat is because for many of us, we understand zakat as an act of charity. Right? When we think zakat, we think of charity. We think of the rich, or those who have wealth, helping those who do not have wealth. And actually, this is not correct. This is not a correct definition of zakat. Zakat is not an act of charity, first and foremost. The word zakat translates to increase, or it's something that can grow. This is the root of zakat. And zakat, in the Quran, various words are used to describe and to define zakat. We find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the words cleanliness, growth, blessing, praise. All of these words are used to define zakat within the Quran. And Imam al-Nawawi is reported to have said that the share of wealth is called zakat because it increases the funds from which it's taken and protects them from being lost or destroyed. Okay, so zakat is, as I mentioned, it's not an act of charity. What is it? It is an act of ibadah. Zakat, as we contextualize our understanding of zakat, first and foremost, we have to understand that it is an act of ibadah. It is an act of worship above all else. Above being an act of charity, above being an act of anything else, it is an act of fulfilling the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the number one definition of zakat, an act of ibadah. And it's the number one reason why a person should pay zakat. We do not pay zakat primarily to help the needy. This is not why we primarily pay zakat. We pay zakat to fulfill the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on us. Right? And the person who pays it, their wealth gets cleansed. You'll notice here that in this definition, the primary person who receives benefit is not the one who receives it, it's the one who pays it. The one who pays the zakat, their wealth becomes cleansed. And their wealth becomes increased. So this, we have to first start by contextualizing, or maybe redefining or reaffirming our understanding of zakat. It's not just an act of charity that helps the poor, and it benefits the poor. We have to rethink this, that zakat is an act of ibadah. The The first person who benefits, the person who benefits the most, is the one who pays zakat. Again, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah says that the inner soul of the zakat payer gets better and his wealth becomes cleansed. So we have another benefit for the person who pays their zakat. In the Quran, there's many proofs of zakat in the Quran. In fact, the word zakat appears 27 times. It appears 30 times. 30 times in the Quran, the word zakat appears, and 27 out of those times, it is linked with salah. Right? Allah Ta'ala says to establish zakat and to establish salah and to pay zakat. 27 times in the Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says this. Right? And this is to give us an understanding of the importance of zakat, and it is also to make us understand that this is a fard obligation, not just an act of charity, as I said before. Right? In fact, zakat is when the Prophet ﷺ mentioned to us that this deen, this Islam, is built on 5 pillars. He mentioned the first is tawheed, the first is iman. After this, the next one is salah. Right? There's no act that's greater importance than salah. The third is zakat. He listed zakat before he mentioned fasting in the month of Ramadan, and before he mentioned performing the Hajj. After salah, he mentioned the third pillar is zakat. And there's reasons for this. We're going to get into them in just a moment to understand why zakat is such a fundamentally important act of ibadah. Right? And a big part of that is because it's an act of ibadah which is unlike many others. It is different than salah. It is different than fasting in Ramadan. And we'll explore why in just a moment. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says to the effect, and we made them leaders, meaning the prophets were leaders who guide men by our command, and we sent inspiration to do good deeds, to establish regular prayers, and to practice zakat. And they constantly serve us. So here Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is speaking about the prophets who came before our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is telling us that they were also legislated with zakat and salah. So this is not something new to the ummah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is something that previous nations were also legislated. Previous ummah, the nations that came before, they also had zakat. In fact, zakat is the oldest institution of where redistribution of wealth is concerned. Today there's many different social services that are available. They all can date their origins back to, trace their origins back to zakat. It's the first that took into consideration the needs of the needy, and 7 other categories which we'll discuss in a few slides, inshallah. Another proof of the validity of zakat in the Quran is mentioned in Surah Al-Rum. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says to the effect, so give that what is due to kindred, meaning your family, the needy, and the wayfarer, the one who's traveling. That is best for those who seek the countenance of Allah, and it is they who will prosper. For that which you lend in the riba, for increase throughout the poverty of other people, will have no increase with Allah. But that which you lay out for in zakat, seeking the countenance of Allah, will increase, and it is they who will get the recompense multiplied. So here in this verse, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is explaining to us 2 different financial transactions, and the consequence of these 2. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is saying that which you lend in riba, that which you lend, you give a debt and you lend it out with increase. There's excess money coming back, will have no reward with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Whereas that which you give in zakat, seeking the reward from Allah, will increase. This requires a change in how we perceive our money and how we approach the value of our money. Because for many people, we think of money in mathematical terms and in absolute numbers. And we attribute value to our money in accordance with the these numbers. We think that if I have $104, this is better than $97, because 104 is greater than 97. Right? We approach money from a mathematical understanding. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is challenging this understanding in this verse. Because if a person has $100 and they lend it in riba at 4%, and they're getting it back $4 on top of their 100, that's 104, versus a person who has $100 and they give 2.5%, bringing their value down to $97.50. Mathematically, we think that 97 is inferior, it's less than 104. 104 is better, this is our thinking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is challenging this thinking in this verse, where He is telling us that the 97 that you would have after paying zakat is better for you than the 104 had you lent in riba. Right? So He's telling us to avoid riba, to stay away from riba, do not engage in riba. And instead, pay your zakat and cleanse your wealth. So we should rethink how we view money. Don't think of it just purely from a mathematical perspective in absolute dollars, but think about the rights that other people have upon our wealth through commandments such as zakat. In the prophetic tradition, in the ahadith, there's many different groups. We've just selected one, which is reported by Hakim. Prophet ﷺ said that he who pays zakat, seeking the reward from Allah, will be rewarded. And he who refuses to pay it, we shall take it from him, along with half of his wealth. And by the authority given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the clan of Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when we say the name of Muhammad, our beloved Nabi, we should all be saying sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They're not allowed to take anything from the proceeds. So, in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is mentioning two things. Number one, the person who pays it, seeking the reward, will be rewarded. But conversely, the one who refuses, and I want to draw attention to this because we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained justice through His Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to all of mankind. And the punishments always fit the crime. There's no injustice with Allah, within the Sharia. And if we look at the penalty here that is legislated for the person who refuses to pay zakat, it is severe. In addition to it actually being forcefully taken, whatever amount they owed, that has to be taken anyway. So the amount that they refused, it has to be paid. But on top of that, separate, in addition to that, half of whatever they own is taken away as a fine. This is severe. And it is because refusal to pay zakat is a severe offense. Again, first and foremost, it is an act of ibadah that a person has refused. It is a fard obligation that a person has refused. Secondly, it is an act of ibadah that is unlike other acts of ibadah because it has a financial aspect associated with it. If a person neglects their salah, or a person does not fast in the month of Ramadan, even though they're supposed to, they're harming themselves. They are sinning their own souls, and they are harming themselves. But they're not actually harming anyone else. A person who refuses to pray salah or to fast in Ramadan, they're not actually harming anyone else, just themselves. But a person who refuses to pay zakat, they are harming themselves and they are harming others who had a lawful right to that wealth. So this is where we get into some of the objectives of zakat. Now that we've looked at the definition of zakat, which is first and foremost an act of ibadah, which cleanses the person who pays. This is the definition of zakat. We've looked at some of the proofs of zakat from the Quran as well as from the Sunnah. Let's look at now what are some of the objectives. After being an act of ibadah, what are some of the objectives of zakat? So first and foremost, as we mentioned, this is priority number one. It is a fard act of worship. However, it is also a tripartite transaction. It's a three-way transaction between those who have wealth, between those who are administering zakat, and those who are receiving. So there's a financial aspect to this act of worship that doesn't exist with salah. It doesn't exist with fasting in Ramadan. It doesn't exist with Hajj. Right? This is unique. Right? It's a redistribution of wealth where other people are affected, not just the person who's paying it. So Imam al-Shatibi characterized this act of ibadah as a social financial contribution. So it has financial implications. A person who, this is why the penalty for zakat, for refusal to pay zakat is so severe, because a person who refuses to pay it, they are denying the rights of those who are in need. They are withholding from them wealth that is lawfully, rightfully theirs. And again, this is something that when we think about our wealth, we have to rethink how we think about it. Because if I have $100 in my bank account or $1,000 in my bank account or whatever I have to have in my mind at all times, not all of this money belongs to me. Some of this money belongs to others. Through zakat, if I have to pay zakat, if I have wealth greater than nisab, we're going to look at what that means in just a few moments, some of this wealth does not belong to me. It belongs to someone else that I have to pay it to. So we have to start thinking this way about our wealth and where the redistribution of our wealth is concerned. One of the objectives of this act of ibadah is to fulfill the mandate of the Sharia itself. The purpose why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the Sharia, gave us laws that govern our lives, is to achieve common benefit and to prevent common harm. This is what the Sharia sets out to do. If you look at any aspect, any law in the Sharia, the underlying purpose of that law is this. Is to achieve common benefit for all and prevent common harm. By redistributing wealth between those who have it and those who are in need of it, the Sharia achieves this. This act of zakat achieves this objective. Right? Otherwise, by withholding wealth or hoarding wealth or withdrawing wealth from circulation in the economy, people can become desperate. People who have needs, financial needs, can become desperate. And desperate people can turn to desperate means to fulfill their family's needs. Right? And the Sharia tries to prevent that from happening. And of course, the number one objective of paying zakat is this. This is the number one objective. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Mudaththir to the effect that every soul will be held in pledge for its deeds except the companions of the right hand. They will be in gardens of delight. They will question each other and ask of the sinners, what led you into hellfire? And those who are in the fire will say, we were not those who prayed, nor were we those who fed the indigent. But we used to talk vanities with vain talkers, and we used to deny the day of judgment. So, in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us a snapshot. He's giving us a scene from what's going to happen in the next life, where the people in the garden will be able to question those who are in the fire and ask them, what did you do that got you into that situation? And this is what the people in the fire will respond with. That they did not pray, they denied the day of judgment, and they didn't pay zakat. And they talked about vanities with vain talkers, and they denied the day of judgment. So this is, again, the number one objective for all of us is this, is to learn from this verse and to avoid being in that category of people who did not pay zakat. Right? So again, may Allah Ta'ala give myself and all of us the ability to understand the importance that this is an act of ibadah. In fact, I'll even take it one step further. It was asked of Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. It was asked of him, because the people, they understood that, we have to pay zakat to the poor, the needy, they have to be able to receive it. So they asked him, "Oh Shaykh, what should a people do? What do we do if there are no poor people? There's no poor, there's no needy, everyone has an abundance of wealth. There's no one who's eligible to receive zakat. What do we do in such an instance?" And he said that if such a place and time existed, then one person from that community should give all of their wealth in sadaqah and effectively bankrupt themselves, making themselves eligible to receive zakat. That way everyone has someone to pay to. And that person, by doing that, is fulfilling the fard requirement of that entire community. This is just an example to show how this is not an act of charity. This is an act of ibadah that must take place. It has to happen. And if there's no one willing, if there's no one that qualifies to receive charity, then someone should make themselves qualified to receive it. And this will fulfill the fard of everyone. Okay, so who are those recipients that can receive zakat? Allah Ta'ala mentions in Surah Tawbah, verse 60. He mentions 8 categories of people that are lawful recipients of zakat. The first is lil fuqara, those who are impoverished, okay, those who are poor. And these are individuals who don't have sufficient wealth to satisfy their basic needs. They don't have enough for food or clothing or rent or whatever it is. They don't have enough. The second is al-masakin, those who are extremely poor. These two categories are very similar in that they're both impoverished, they're both in need. The difference between the two, the ulama have written that the difference between the two is lil-fuqara, they'll humble themselves. They will come forward, they will ask. They will come to the masjid or they'll come out and they'll say, "Please, can I have help?" Right? Al-masakin will suffer in silence out of their own shyness or humility. They won't ask. These are people in our community. These are our neighbors. Some of them are our friends. Some of them we may know. It is our responsibility to look after both. Not just those who come and ask, but we also have to help those who don't ask. The third category is al-amilin. These people are employed to collect. These are people who are collecting zakat, they're accounting it, they're distributing it, they know the situation of the people in the community, and it's really interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this category third after lil fuqara wal masakin. The third is this is a wage. This is a wage paid to those who are responsible for the administration of zakat. Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah said that up to 1/8 of the total funds collected can be used for this category. And this is, any one of us could be doing this job, right? And think of this almost like a person who, it is providing a social service, it's providing a service for society, where they know the situation, there's an intake, where they know the situation of the people that are coming to ask, they review their bank statements, their financials to make sure they qualify, yes, you are in need. They collect, they know the situation of those who have to pay to make sure that no one is withholding zakat. They account for everything and they distribute. This third speaks to the institution of zakat, this third category. Right? It's a category where it's an actual wage that's paid to support the institution of zakat. And the fourth is al-mu'afat al-qulub, those whose hearts are to be won. Right? These are individuals who Could be new Muslims, for example, who have just recently taken the Shahada, and because of this, perhaps their family are not supportive. Some of them may even get kicked out of their homes because their family doesn't support their Shahada, their Islam. Right? These people can be in need, and so they are allowed to receive from Zakat as well. Right? In the times of early on in Islam, there was also instances where non-Muslims would receive from Zakat. Right? Today, the consensus amongst the ulama is that they are not in this category anymore. And the proof of this was an instance that happened during the Khalifa of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, where two people came and asked Abu Bakr, do you recognize us? We used to receive zakat from your Prophet. And Abu Bakr, as Siddiq, he was honest, he said, yes, I recognize you, and yes, even though you're not Muslim, the Prophet used to give you from zakat. I recognize, yeah, it's true. So they said, okay, would you write this down for us? Because Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu appointed Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu as the person who was in charge of zakat. So he wrote it down. Abu Bakr wrote it down that yes, these two people used to receive zakat. He gave the paper. They took it to Umar. And they said, here, this is signed by your Amir, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. We would like zakat. Right? As your Prophet used to give us. Umar tore the paper up. He shredded it right in front of him. And said, yes, we used to give you zakat because at that time we were weak, we needed your help. Today we're strong, we don't. So if you were with us, then be with us, and if you're not, then there's nothing between us but the sword. He turned them away. He didn't give them anything. Even though the Prophet ﷺ did so, he refused. They went back and complained to Abu Bakr and said, okay, who's in charge? Who's the Amir al-Mu'mineen here? Is it you or is it Umar? And Abu Bakr said, well, if Umar wants to be the Caliph, then he's the Caliph. He's the Amir. He didn't go against what Umar did. He didn't dispute it. Right? So today, the ulama are pretty much of consensus that we don't include non-Muslims in this category. It's more Muslims who need a little bit of assistance. The fifth category is ar-riqa. So those captives to be freed, these are individuals who may have been incarcerated wrongfully and they need assistance to secure their freedom. The sixth is al-gharimin, those who are in debt. And this is individuals who have gotten into debt not voluntarily. It's not like someone who went out and got a big mortgage and bought a big house and now they want to ask for zakat to pay. No, that's not what this is for. This is for individuals who have gotten into debt out of some situation that was not of their making. Maybe they had an illness and they incurred medical expenses, or several years ago, I live on the West Island. Back in 2017, 2019, there was really bad flooding. I don't know if you guys remember that, and people lost their homes, and some people had a massive amount of debt because their homes were destroyed by the flood, and they had debt. And these individuals could also, it's a natural disaster, it's not of their making. So these people who are in debt. And I want to just point one thing out here, that as a community, let's all make the intention of avoiding riba in our lives. If we have any involvement with riba, get away from it. Because riba is almost the exact opposite of zakat. The riba takes debt and increases it. Right? It increases debt through interest. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made one of the categories to receive zakat those who have debt. Allah ta'ala wants people to get out of debt, not be pushed further into it through interest. Right? So riba is completely haram. And it is exactly the opposite of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from our lives, which is to avoid debt. To the extent that someone who has a lot, they can receive from zakat to get out of it. Right? So I just want to put that as a sidebar. Avoid riba in our personal lives. Quick question? Excuse me? All of these categories have to be Muslims, correct? The question was, are all these categories Muslims? Yes, the recipient of zakat must be a Muslim. Okay, it must be a Muslim, and this extends to organizations. Okay, it has to be an individual person. You cannot pay your zakat to build a masjid. Okay, even though that's an Islamic cause, the masjid itself cannot receive the zakat money and use it for itself to pay its lighting and its property tax or its construction. No. You cannot pay zakat to build a school. You cannot pay zakat to build a road or anything like this. It has to be one of these categories, and it's a human being that's receiving the money. It's not some other organization that's using it for some other purpose. That's not zakat. Okay, that's sadaqah, that's different. And fi sabilillah, right? This is in the way of Allah. Now, this is probably in today's times the most used and abused category that we find, where everybody says fi sabilillah, and they use zakat for everything. No, like in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, if there was a battle that was taking place and they needed, wealth to pay for horses and armor and swords and things like this, okay, that was used for that. Today, this is a category, and for the interest of time, I'm not going to delve into that, but be very careful with this category because a lot of people are misusing this category today. And the last category that's mentioned is Ibn Sabil, which literally translates to son of the road. It's the person who's traveling. This category also doesn't really apply today. The reason is that in the prophetic times, or even after that, a person who was traveling and got disconnected from their wealth, like maybe they were traveling and they lost their wealth, or it was stolen from them, or something happened and they no longer have enough wealth to get home, right? They're stranded, right? These people could have received zakat, give them enough so that they can continue and get to their destination, right? Today, with electronic funds transfers and wiring and these type access to electronic money and things like this, it's really difficult to get disconnected from your wealth in today's times in a way that you would be stranded, right? So this category, we don't really see that much of today because people are pretty much always connected to their wealth in some way or fashion. What's really interesting, if you look at how Allah, because every single word in the Quran is very intentional. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses, for the first 4 categories, He uses the word lil, right? Lil means to, right? Whereas for the second 4, He uses fi, which means in. Okay? This is really interesting how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the first 4, He uses to, and for the second 4, He uses in. You pay to the needy Muslim. You pay to the extremely poor. To those who are employed. To those whose hearts are to be won. And the reason for this is because when you're paying to the first 4 categories, you are giving the money to them, and it is for them to use how they see fit. You are giving the money to them. It's their money, and they can use it for whatever they need. Food, shelter, clothing. In the case of a wage, they can use it for the aminin, they can use it for whatever they want. It's their money. For all 4, they can use it for whatever they want. Whereas for the second 4 categories, you're paying into something. You're paying directly into someone. For the use of proceeds is to remove them from captivity. Or you're paying into their debt, or you're paying into their transportation, right? Or into whatever the fi sabilillah is, right? So it's a specific thing that you're contributing towards. Okay, this is the difference between the first 4 categories and the second 4 categories. Okay, so now that we've looked at who can receive, who has to pay, upon whom is zakat fard upon. So first of all, because zakat is first and foremost an act of ibadah, there is no zakat on non-Muslims, even if they're living under Islamic rule in an Islamic country. There's no zakat on them because the act of ibadah is not farḍ. They haven't taken tawheed. Any Muslim who has wealth greater than the value of nisab has to pay zakat. And we'll look at what nisab means in just a moment. And when we say any Muslim, it means any Muslim that a farḍ obligate that would be incumbent on them. So this includes individuals, because of the financial component of it, the individual even who might be in a coma or who might be having a neurological disorder, like Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, things like this, their waqil, or their caregiver, their agent, will pay it on their behalf, on their wealth, on their behalf. So yes, those who are insane must also pay. So what is the rate of zakat? On agricultural goods, crops, the rate of zakat is 10%. I don't know if anyone here is in farming, but if you are on certain agricultures, the rate of zakat is 10%. On everything else that's considered a financial asset, or that has a financial component, it's 2.5%, right? The saying is that on silver or on dirhams, a fourth of a tenth, so a quarter of 10%, which is 2.5%. This is the rate of zakat on money, okay, or things that are classified as wealth or as money. So Anas bin Malik says, I was commissioned by Umar radiallahu anhu to collect the sadaqah, to collect zakat. He instructed me to take from each 20 dinars 1/2, and from more than 20 at the rate of 1 dirham for each 4. So this is how the 2.5% or the 2.5 came. Now, I'll just put one small caveat on this because I often get asked this question in Q&A, so I'm going to try and preempt it this year. In the time of the companion, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and even the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, and Tabi'in, there was no electronic money. Everything was in physical coins. Right? There was gold coins called dinars, and there were silver coins called dirhams, and we would literally take from the coins. Right? This is how zakat used to be paid. And because of this, it was easy to do, because you just take from what you have in front of you. With this concept of having to have the wealth for one haul, like 1 year, with electronic money, that becomes very difficult to calculate. Because if you have a certain amount of money already in your account, and then you get paid, and that goes into the same account, and all the funds are commingled digitally in your banking, it becomes nearly impossible to distinguish the money that you had from a year ago versus the money that you have today. This is why the recommendation is not to try to calculate your zakat on the money that you've been holding for 1 year. Because it's almost impossible to distinguish. If you want to do that, you have to be paying your zakat monthly. Calculate it monthly before you get that paycheck so you can track what you had from before. Right? It becomes, like, calculating your zakat will become your full-time job, if that's the approach that you want to take. There's an easier way, which we'll discuss, inshallah, in a few slides. So what is nisab? Okay, now there's two values. There's the value of nisab on gold, and there's the value of nisab on silver. For anyone who's been paying attention over the past 1.5 years, gold has rapidly appreciated in price. Okay, the current rate on gold, calculated at 85 grams of gold, which is 20 dinars worth, is $19,380. It's a lot of money. If you're taking the gold nisab value, which is what scholars have always recommended in the past, is to use the gold. This is the nisab for this year, for right now, I should say. On silver, it's 200 dirhams, which is about 595 grams, which is 2,300. Okay? So this year, I've been, alhamdulillah, this is the 17th year that I'm doing this presentation in this center. It's the 17th Ramadan that I'm doing this presentation, and for the past 16 years, I have always said we should take the gold standard for Nisab. This year, I am saying to take the silver. This year, I'm saying that if you want to calculate your Nisab, use the silver measure this year and not the gold. And the reason I'm saying this is because both are acceptable. The gold is preferred. The gold standard is preferred, no doubt. But the silver is also acceptable because both were used in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. But if we take the gold standard of Nisab, not a whole lot of people, very few people will actually be eligible to pay Zakat, will have assets equal to this that they're paying Zakat on. And as a result, even fewer people will receive Zakat. Less people pay, less people receive. This is why the recommendation is adopt the silver standard this year, inshallah. Okay? Yes, and the wealth has to be tax-free. Not tax-free, debt-free, meaning net of any liabilities. We'll go into that in a little more detail, what I mean by that, inshallah. Okay, so now that we've looked at the rate of Zakat, 2.5%, and we've looked at what that threshold for Nisab is, and also, I often get asked this question, so I'll try and preempt it as well. What is our Nisab date? Like, what's the Nisab date? The Nisab date is whatever day in your life, in my life, everyone's life, in which you first had wealth equal to the value of Nisab. Okay? Now, that's a different day for everyone. But for many of us, we may not have been paying attention. Maybe we were young, maybe we were kids, maybe we don't remember what that date was, but that would have been your Nisab date. Okay? If you don't remember, or if you weren't paying attention, if you don't know what your Nisab date was, like for me it could have been the 13th of Rajab, I don't know, when I was 14 years old. Allah knows best, right? I don't know. I honestly don't know my Nisab date. Okay? I wasn't paying attention to it when I was younger. My parents would take care of my Zakat for me. So, you're allowed to pick a date and stick with that date. This is your Fard Zakat paying date. That's your date. So for some of us who pick a date in Ramadan, because the multiplication of rewards, you can pick whatever date you want. But stick to that date. It's a date in the Islamic calendar, not the solar calendar. Because it's an act of ibadah. It has to perform at the same time every year Islamically, not according to the solar cycle, the lunar calendar. Okay? So pick whatever date you want, but stick to that date and don't go past it. Okay? Don't pay your zakat after that date. That is a sin. If you pay it before, that's okay. But don't pay it after. Okay? And zakat does not have to be paid on that date. You can pay it before. And there could even be more rewards for doing that. Like, for example, say my Nisab date is the 27th night of Ramadan. That's the date I picked for myself, the 27th of Ramadan. Okay? And hypothetically, say right now we're sitting in I don't know, Rajab. Right? It's not Ramadan yet. But there's a catastrophe. There's a war. There's a genocide happening. Where my brothers and sisters are being slaughtered. And they need help. There could be more reward for me giving my zakat in Rajab when there's a need than waiting until Ramadan. Because there's more reward in fulfilling the need of those Muslims at the time of Rajab. Right? So you don't have to wait for your zakat. You can pay it before, but just don't pay it after. Okay? Okay, so what are the assets that we have to include, we have to calculate upon? So there's not a lot of assets defined in the Quran. Gold is mentioned, silver is mentioned, crops, general wealth is mentioned. Wealth is anything that can be obtained and benefited from. This is what we pay zakat on typically, that we're not using for personal consumption. Okay, it's not our personal use. So there's no zakat on the home that I live in. Okay, if I'm living in my house, I don't pay zakat on my home. The clothes that I wear, the car that I drive for my personal use, my furniture, my fridge, my appliances, I don't pay zakat on any of the things that I'm using personally. I'm going to pay zakat on my money or assets that I may have designated for sale or that have the potential to grow. So the first litmus test or the first qualification to determine if we pay zakat on an asset or not is, do I own the asset? Is it truly mine? And ownership means both material and constructive ownership. Okay? That means that I have to have the asset in my name, and I have to have taken possession of the asset. It can't be en route somewhere. Like if I've paid for something and I paid for it, the money's left in my account, but that asset is currently on a ship somewhere between here and China. I haven't received it yet. It's not physically in my possession. I do not have constructive possession of that asset yet. It's not fully mine yet. So I would not pay zakat on that asset yet until I've received it. So ownership has to be absolute. Also, if I own something and there's a rahan, again, there's a mortgage, a security against it, my ownership is not complete. So I would not pay zakat on that asset. So in order for zakat to be due, you have to be able to dispose of the asset. You have to be able to sell it if you want to. It has to be something that you can sell by yourself without any constraints. There's no lockup period. There's no restrictions on sale for the asset. If there are, then you may not have to pay zakat. And this is an important consideration because this is going to affect some of your investment accounts, potentially. It's important to understand. That's why we're learning these rules, is how we can apply them to contemporary assets that didn't exist before, because there are some investment accounts that are locked that you can't access. So we're going to apply this in a few slides, inshallah. So there's no zakat on tools used for craft. So, what does this mean? It means that if I have some type of business or I'm involved in some type of commerce, and I have instruments that I use for my business that I'm not selling these things. I use them in the course of my business. For example, a carpenter who's in the business of building homes, right? He has a hammer, he has a saw, he has drills and screwdrivers on it. These are tools that he uses to build homes. He's not going to pay zakat on any of these tools because he needs them to work, right? In the same way, if I'm a taxi driver, right? I drive my car around all day and I collect fares from my passengers, and that's how I provide for my family. My car is my tool used for my craft. I'm not going to pay zakat on that car, right? Similarly, we're going to take it one step further. If I'm a business owner and I have a manufacturing business, I manufacture cell phones, for example, okay? In my business, I'm going to have fixed assets and I'm going to have current assets. My fixed assets are my land, my building, my machinery that produces my phones, my software system that manages my production, my accounting software and all that. These are all fixed assets. These are all my tools used to make my phone, tools used for craft. I'm not going to pay zakat on any of that. Okay, very important that we understand this because, again, it's going to apply to our investment accounts in a few slides. I also have my current assets in my business. Current assets are the cash I have on hand, my inventory, the cell phones that I produced that I'm waiting to sell. That's part of my business, right? I also have receivables. Maybe I shipped off 10,000 cell phones last month and I'm waiting to get paid, right? It's a 45-day payment cycle or something like that. I have a receivable. These are all current assets. So you have to understand current assets and fixed assets. Tools used for craft and current assets. Very important. Everyone understand this? Some knowing nods, yes? Yes? Okay, great. Alright. No zakat on purchased merchandise not yet received. We discussed this already. So if I paid for something but I haven't received it, I don't own it fully yet. Yes, it's in my name, but I haven't taken possession of it. I can't sell it. Right? I can't sell someone I don't own. I can't sell something to you that's still, I paid for it and it's on a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I can't sell it to you right now because what if I take your money and the ship sinks? What happens then? Right? I can't sell something I don't own, so if I don't own it, I can't include it in my zakat. Yep, question.
So this is related to the date that you have selected and you will pay the zakat, right? So if you choose merchandise, let's say that I say, I'm going to pay the zakat before the 15th of Ramadan, every year. That's the date. Then I purchase merchandise which I have not yet received till the 15th. And the zakat is not due on the purchase. Is that correct?
Yes. I'll repeat the question just so everyone can hear it. The brother's asking the question. Say, for example, I set my nisab date on the 15th of Ramadan, and I've purchased assets or merchandise before that, and then now it's the 15th of Ramadan, and I've not received my merchandise yet. It's still in transit. Do I pay zakat on that merchandise? The answer is no. You would not pay zakat on that merchandise because you don't own it fully yet. Even though you paid for it, you don't have it. So no, you do not pay zakat on that. Assets used as a lien and held by the lien holder. So if I own something that normally I would pay zakat on, but I've mortgaged it to someone because I borrowed something. That asset's not fully under my control, right? Because until I pay off that debt, it's still someone else has a right to it. So I would not pay zakat on that asset. Stolen assets in the possession of thieves. So if I have any of my wealth that's been stolen from me, I don't have it right now, someone else has it, I would not pay zakat on that. What about the thief? Does the thief pay zakat on that wealth? Does the thief pay zakat? No. They have to return the wealth. It's not lawful wealth for them. They have to return the wealth. They don't keep it and pay zakat. And there's no zakat on state-owned assets used for the benefit of all. So like wells, roads, gardens, things like this, hospitals, there's no zakat on this. Personal assets used in the course of our day-to-day living, as we discussed before, there's no zakat on our personal items that we use, our house, our appliances, etc. Okay, so how do we pay our zakat? How do we calculate it? How do we pay it? The simplest sentence that I've been able to find is this. When the zakat is due, on your nisab date, like the 15th of Ramadan for our brother in his hypothetical situation, on your nisab date, when zakat is due, calculate the amount of money that you have. Add to it the value of any inventory. So anything you have for sale. Maybe you listed some things on Facebook Marketplace, or maybe you have some things to sell. Add that to it. Okay? And any debts, any good debts that you expect to be receiving, sum the total, and then deduct whatever current debts you owe. You can also include current expenses. Like for example, if you have a rent payment due in the next month, if you have your cell phone payment due, or your Hydro-Quebec, or your Videotron, or whatever you have, you can deduct those expenses, and then you pay zakat on the net. Okay, this is the easiest, simplest sentence for how to pay it. Now, zakat, the ruling on zakat on debts, there's really only two situations with debts. There's good debts. Good debts are ones where you've lent money out and you expect to be repaid. It's a good debt, right? You know the person, they're good for it, the money's coming back, no concerns. On this, you pay the zakat on it, even though the other person has your money. Okay? So if I lent $500 to somebody, and I expect to be repaid, I know this person, they're good for it, I'm going to get the money back, and my nisab date comes due, even though the other person has my 500, I'm going to include it in my zakat calculation. I'm going to pay zakat on that $500 today. Okay? This is the first position on good debts. Now, then there's lost debts. These are debts where You lent money to somebody, you thought it was going to work out, and it's just not working out. Okay, maybe some of us can relate to this, where you lend money and it's just not coming back. There's 3 different views on lost debts. The first is that if ever you get it back, say you lent it 5 years ago, and it was only for 1 year that you were lending the money, and 4 more years went by and you just forgot about it. And then 5 years later, the person comes back and says, oh yeah, here's your money back. Okay? If ever you do get it back, the first view is that you pay the zakat on it retroactively for each of those 5 years. Okay? So for the first year, you would pay 2.5%. And then for the second year, you would minus the amount that you calculated for the first and pay 2.5% on that amount. And then so on and so forth for each of the years. This is the first year. Okay? The second is that you only pay it for the last year, 1 year prior. If you just got the money back today and you were expecting it back 5 years ago, no problem. Just pay the zakat for the last year and then carry on that money. Okay? That's the second thing. And the third is that you don't have to pay any zakat retroactively of any kind. You don't have to do anything. Just add it to your wealth, carry on, and then, if you still have it when your nasabi comes due, then you can pay zakat in the future. But there's no anything due on it previously. These are the 3 views on debts. On business, so some people have businesses, or people are involved in some type of business. How do we treat zakat where business is concerned? So first, there is urud al-tijara, which is the business inventory. So zakat has to be paid on inventory in your business. So if you have inventory, if you have things that are designated for sale, things that you haven't sold yet, you must pay zakat on your inventory. Okay? This is a current asset. We talked about it a few moments ago. So, for example, if I'm in the business of manufacturing machinery or furniture or whatever it is that I'm doing, or if I have a dipana, if I have a convenience store and I have a bunch of things on my shelves that I'm designated for sale, that's all inventory. I have to pay zakat on all of the things. I don't pay zakat on the dipana itself. I don't pay zakat on the shop. I don't pay zakat on the shelving that the inventory is sitting on. I don't pay zakat on my front desk or my computer system or my chair or my software. These are all the tools I use for craft. But the items sitting for sale that I've laid out on my shelf and whatever I have in the back room, this is current assets. I have to pay zakat on it. Yeah. Raw material and finished products are both considered current assets. So he asks for manufacturing, is it the finished product only, or is it also the raw material? So both are considered current assets. You would calculate on both. Very good question. Also, really interesting. Actually, no, we're gonna do a little test. So anything above the value of nisab, which is bought with the intention of generating a profit, of selling it. Okay, if I bought my laptop with the intention, in my business, I bought my laptop with the intention of using it to store client data and work on Excel and send emails for myself and all that. Do I pay zakat on the laptop that I'm using in my business? Yes? No? No, because I'm using it. But if I bought the same laptop with the intention of, I bought this on sale for $800, I can sell this for $1,200 through my business. Do I pay zakat on the laptop now? Yes, because it's an item for sale. So our intention determines the state the asset is in. And the state the asset is in is what will drive the ruling from. So the intention comes first. That determines the state, and the state determines the ruling that we apply to it. And that can change, right? That can change. Like, for example, if I bought a silverware set, like I bought a knife and fork set for my kitchen, I bought it from, I don't know, wherever I bought it from, and my intention was we're going to use this in our kitchen, we're going to use this to eat, and I bring it home, Am I going to pay zakat on that silverware set? Yes? No? No, because my family's going to use it for it. Now, if my wife looks at that and says, I really don't like that. No. Take it back. And I said, well, there's no refunds. It was a final sale. I can't take it back. Well, she says, okay, then sell it. Get rid of it. Okay? Because I don't want this in our kitchen. I don't like the look of it. I want something different. We all have, wives have preferences. So, now, I've listed it on Facebook Marketplace or on Kijiji or Garage Sale or something like that. Okay? Now, I do pay zakat on it. Even though I bought it with the intention of using it in my home, but because I've designated for sale now, it's inventory, if my nisab date rolls around and I still have that, I have to pay zakat on that. So the intention is very important that we have towards our assets. That's what determines the rulings. Assets in business not acquired for sale at a profit are not zakatable. So we've covered this, right? If I'm using something to run my business, I don't pay zakat. Reported by Al-Rabbani, the Prophet ﷺ used to ordain us to pay the sadaqah or the zakat on that which we designate for sale. Sadaqah and zakat are often interchanged in hadith as well as the Quran. The sadaqah, the root of sadaqah is sidq. Sidq means truth. And we called it sadaqah because it is an action that affirms the truth of our faith. This is why we say it's sadaqah. It's an act that proves that our faith is truthful. That when we say la ilaha illallah, that we're speaking the truth. This is what sadaqah is, because it proves. It's putting your money where your mouth is. It's proving your faith by action. This is why we call it sadaqah. Zakat on rental properties. Now, there were no rental properties at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So, zakat is due on rental properties. But not on the, there's two different types of properties. Two different rulings and two different zakat where rental properties is due. If a person has a rental property that's a long-term asset, meaning they own the property and their intention is to keep the property and derive benefit from rental assets. In that instance, the property itself becomes the tool used for craft. The property is the tool that's generating the income, the rental income. And in that instance, they would not pay zakat on the property itself. They would only pay zakat on the rental income. Okay? They would only use that as the calculation. If, however, a person is investing in real estate and they're flipping properties, meaning they buy an asset, they buy a property, maybe they spend a little bit of money, renovate, and they put it back on the market, they're flipping it. Okay? This asset is the inventory for sale. This property is the inventory for sale. Okay? And they would pay zakat on the value of the property, the land, the property, whatever. They pay zakat on the whole thing. So it depends on the intention. If it's a long term, if it's a tool used for craft, you're just going to pay on rental income. If you're flipping properties, buying and selling properties, then you pay zakat on the property itself. And where does this come from? It comes from Ibn Aqal. Ibn Aqal was a very famous student of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahimahullah. He was a Hanbali scholar, and he extended the ruling from women's jewelry to rental properties. Because there was no rental properties in the time of the Prophet. So you may be wondering where this ruling come from. It came from the same ruling as women's jewelry. So for women are allowed to own up to the value of nisab, which is 85 grams of gold jewelry, and a woman does not pay zakat on those 85 grams of gold jewelry that she owns. It is within her fitrah to own it, even if she doesn't wear it. Even if it sits in a box at the back of her closet, hasn't touched it in the past 20 years, it doesn't matter. She does not pay zakat on it. Up to the first 85 grams of gold. This is the ruling on women's jewelry. Okay? After that, above that, if she owns 90 grams of jewelry, she'll pay zakat on 5. Okay, the excess above 85. Now, what if a woman owns jewelry and it's not just for personal use? She's not just keeping it for herself. What if she rents it out to other ladies? Right? right? She accepts money and she rents it to them, right? The woman then has to pay zakat on that jewelry because it has a commercial. It's now a tool. It's not a tool. It's a commercial asset that's generating revenue for her. So now she has to pay zakat on that jewelry. So Ibn Aqal, rahimahullah, he said that properties is the same thing. If you're living in it, no problem, no zakat. But once you start renting it out, or has a commercial aspect attached to it, now you include it in your zakat. Oh, and I got ahead of myself here, is the zakat on jewelry. So, for men, it's 100%. If a man owns jewelry, all of it is considered for zakat. You can maybe exclude one small ring, because the Prophet ﷺ, he did wear one small ring. So you can maybe exclude that, that's fine. Beyond that, any jewelry that a man owns, he must pay zakat on it, fully. Okay, it's just for women that the ruling is different. So do anything, as I just mentioned, it's due on anything above the value of nisab, which is 85 grams of gold. And there's no zakat on precious gems like diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires. These are considered rocks in the Sharia. There's no zakat on precious stones. Okay, so now, zakat on registered funds, on investments. Okay, so there's different account types, and you have to understand the account types in order to apply the rulings to them. And again, I apologize that we're going quickly, but I want to be respectful of time because Asr is close, and then there's usually a lot of Q&A as well. So first, determine if it's completely owned by the individual and if it can be disposed of. So if you have an investment account and the account is in your name and you can access the funds, then you have to consider it for zakat. Okay? As I mentioned before, if you cannot access it, because there's some accounts where it's locked up until a certain age, right? And or certain funds within the account can't be accessed, then you would not pay zakat on those funds while it's locked. So this is an important consideration to apply. We've learned the rules, now let's apply them to our circumstances with our different accounts. It's determined if the funds are growing or have the potential for growth. All investment accounts, all securities, whether the funds are sitting in cash or invested securities, have the potential to grow. Okay, so this is a consideration. Zakat is legislated to help the poor without impoverishing the risk by having the rich pay from their surplus, right? Taking a little bit from the plenty. So our wealth should be growing. We should not be leaving money sitting idle in our bank accounts or stuffed under our mattresses, or if you're from the Indian subcontinent, maybe it's in a container in your kitchen cupboard. We don't do this. Okay? Money should be growing. Every single year that you leave money out of circulation, meaning it's just sitting in your bank account, not invested, you're losing on average 5.5%. Every year that you leave money sitting in your account, you're losing approximately 5.5%. The average rate of inflation in Canada is 3%. That's the average. Sometimes it's more. COVID, we saw it go much higher. And zakat is 2.5%. So please, invest your wealth in a halal way so that it can grow, and then you have more to pay your zakat. Inshallah. But zakat is not meant to erode money that's not growing. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Okay, so zakat on a tax-free savings account. Okay? I'm sure everyone may have heard of this account type. It's an account where you can put money in and you can take money out. There's no restriction on it. And the growth that takes place within the account is tax exempt. So because the TFSA is fully accessible, there's no restrictions on access. If it's not long-term, the rate of zakat is 100%. You pay zakat on the whole thing. If it's an account that you're using for short-term investment. Okay? If it's a long-term account, then you take the current assets approach, which is 25%. Okay? You pay zakat on 25% of the account value, market value times 25% if it's a long-term account. This is because if you look at the average public company traded on exchange, and you look at their valuation, approximately 75% on average of that valuation will be fixed assets. What we discussed before, the land, the machinery, the equipment, all of that. And about 25% on average is current assets, meaning cash, inventory, accounts receivables, things like this. So if it's a long-term account, you're not touching the TFSA for many years, 10 years plus, right? Then 25%. Okay. Zakat on registered retirement savings plans, RRSP, right? These are long-term accounts. So RRSPs are partially accessible, okay? While it's still in its RRSP form, you can access the funds, but not all of it. If you withdraw from an RRSP, there will be withholding taxes. Okay, so there's two views, and both are correct. It just depends on what you follow. The first view says that you will pay zakat on the amount you would receive after withholding taxes. So if you withdraw from an RRSP, the federal government will impose withholding taxes, source deduction taxes. Up to the first $5,000, 10% tax. Up between 5 and 15, 20% tax. 15,000 and above, 30%. So depending on how much the value of your RRSP is, you would pay zakat on the amount you would receive after withholding taxes. This is the first view. Okay? So if I have a $100,000 account in my RRSPs, I would pay on $70,000 using this rule.
So, because this is considered as an income when you deduct RRSP, like 70%, let's say 100K, you get 70,000. Because of my current rate, this is considered as an income and that moves me into a very different tax bracket. So instead of 30%, cumulatively I receive much less. I'm making tax at 50% because of my current yearly rate. So in this case, meaning I should pay zakat on the money received?
So the brother's asking a question that, okay, there's withholding taxes at the source, which is 30%, but on top of that, I'm also going to pay income tax on the withdrawal. And if my income tax level, if my marginal tax rate is 50%, then shouldn't I also be deducting that from my zakat calculation as well? Different scholars will give you different answers on this. The majority of scholars will say no. You just consider the withholding tax, and after that, it's whatever your tax situation is, that's your own situation. Because when you get into the marginal tax rate of different people, it's different, right? So the majority of scholars say not to consider the marginal tax rate.
Just because the money, the actual money that I will receive, even though I calculate the zakat on 70%, it will be less than 70% because I will be taxed on it. Right? So, even considering that, I can
Correct. So brothers asking the question again, just reaffirming that, again, I'm going to be paying withholding taxes and I'm going to be paying income tax. Shouldn't I consider both? And the answer is no. No, the answer is you're going to consider only the withholding tax. You're not going to consider the income tax. Right? The second view is you just take the current assets approach, right? Which is you pay 25% on the value of your long-term investment holdings, which is the current assets value of your account, right? So again, and it's a big difference between the two, right? If it's a $100,000 account, it's the difference between paying on $70,000 versus paying on $25,000, right? So it's a big difference between the two. But again, both opinions are valid. It's just a question of which one you follow. But whatever you do follow, stick with it. Don't change. This year I'm doing this, this next year I'm doing that. Just stick to the same thing. Yep.
So both methods are okay.
Both methods are correct, yes.
So I was agreeing with this, sir.
Yep.
In the same year, you're going to have more revenue, so your income tax rate will be higher than
So yes and no. So here's the thing. Your marginal tax rate, some people may know their marginal tax rate. For some people it changes. Right? Some people are just on the cusp of it, maybe they get commission income or things like this, or like a real estate agent, for example, right? One year they make a lot, the next years they don't. How do they know their marginal tax rate necessarily at the date of their nisab? Everyone's responsible for their own. Yeah. Yeah, I have heard some scholars say that you can do it, but
So if 30% is more sure value, so we do.
So for the option number 2, we must assume that this is a long-term asset that I'm not touching.
correct.
Right? And what is long-term? It is my retirement, so maybe 15 years is considered.
Yeah, long term is considered 10 plus years.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was asking, what's long term? Like for the second scenario, for current assets, I have to. This is a long term asset. He's asking what's long term. Long term is 10 plus years. I'm holding it for a long time. Okay. RESP, Educational Savings Plans for the Children. Okay. So first of all, RESP is partially accessible. Okay. Even when the children are small, you can technically withdraw from the account, even before they go to a qualifying, accredited educational institution. That was a mouthful. You can take money out. Okay, just the government will take back the grant portion that corresponds to your withdrawal. But it is accessible, so you are going to pay zakat on it. Now, because zakat is an act of ibadah, there is no zakat due on children's wealth below the age of poverty. Okay, so you're not going to pay zakat if the children are below the age of poverty. You're not going to pay zakat on them. Once they hit the age of puberty, the money in the RESP does not belong to you, even though you put it in. It belongs to the child that you contributed to. Okay, so you're giving that money. It's not your money anymore. It's your child's money. It goes towards their zakat calculation, not yours. Okay, so once they hit puberty, and let's just assume puberty is 14 years old, just for conversation's sake, but you all know your children. It varies based on the child. Between 14 and 18, when they're of age to go to Sejak or university or whatever they're going to, for those years, those couple of years, few years, you don't pay zakat on the grant portion because they can't access that money yet. Okay, for those who are unaware, an RESP account, you put money in and the federal and provincial governments match a percentage of your contribution. They put grant money into the account for the child. Now that grant money can't be accessed by the child until they're enrolled in an accredited college or university or some school that's qualified, it's accredited. Okay? So between the age of puberty and 18, they can't access the grant money. You don't pay zakat on that yet. Okay? So you only pay zakat on the rest of the account. However, you have to keep track of the grant money during those years, between puberty and whenever they get enrolled. Because when the grant money is unlocked, you then have to pay it retroactively on the grant money between the ages of 14 to 18. Okay? So this is an important consideration. What you can do if you're very certain your child's going to go to college or university is you can pay it. Even between 14 and 18. You can pay on the grant money as well. That way you don't have to keep track of it and pay it retroactively. You can do that. Okay? But if you want to be technically correct, you don't pay it on the funds you can't access until you can access it, and then you pay it retroactively. Okay? Non-registered accounts, these are cash accounts. If it's a short-term account, just like the TFSA, it's fully zakatable. If it's a long-term account, 25% of the current assets approach. Pensions, LIRA, CPP, Canada Pension Plan, Quebec Pension Plan, defined contribution pension plans, DCPPs, defined benefit plans, group RRSPs. These are all different types of pensions or group retirement plans. So, if it's locked, like a LIRA, en français on dit un CRI, un compte de retraite immobilisé, if it's locked, then we do not pay zakat on it because we can't access the funds. Okay, even though there could be $100,000 sitting there, it's locked. I can't access it. It's like the merchandise on the Pacific Ocean that I haven't received yet. I can't get to it. I don't pay zakat on it. Okay. But once the account does become unlocked, I pay zakat on the unlocked portion at that time. Okay? And the rest of it, whatever is in the account, is long term. It's my retirement account. It's long term. So I would take the current assets approach on that. Okay? These are, I believe, all the different investment accounts that we've covered. We just applied the rulings that we learned to them. So let's do a case study and try and bring all this home in practical terms. Your friend Ali has asked for your help in calculating his zakat for himself and his family, as he's a little unsure how to do it himself. He's listed off his assets and debts so that you can properly advise him. His assets, unless indicated otherwise, are all under his direction, meaning he's managing it himself. Okay? His assets are as follows. So there's assets for Ali, for his wife, Amana, and for the children, Bilal and Ismail. We're going to assume that the children are, Bilal is 9 years old and Ismail is 15 years old. Okay? So he has a house which is valued at $750,000, and he has a mortgage on the house of $450,000. So he owns $300,000 of equity in his home. Do we count this towards his zakat calculation? No? Yes? Who says no? Who says yes? No? Why?
It's his house, his own house.
It's his own house, he's living in it. Right? So he doesn't pay zakat on this. This asset, don't consider it. Zero. No zakat. He has a car and his wife has a car. He uses his car to get to work. His wife uses it to get to her work and pick up the kids from school. Do they count their cars in the zakat? No? Same as the house. Right? Personal use, no zakat. He has jewelry in the amount of $5,000, and his wife has jewelry, gold jewelry, in the amount of $15,000. Do we consider his jewelry? Do we consider her jewelry? Okay, who says, okay, you said both of them?
One has to pay, for the man, pay the 5,000 because it's more than the nisab, and for the wife, we have to minus the nisab and pay for the.
Okay, so he's saying for the man, it's above nisab, you said? For the man?
It's more than, it's jewelry.
It's
for man.
male jewelry at 100%. That's correct. So for him, 5,000 so far. So he has to pay 5,000. For the woman?
Normally we take the nisab, then pay for the.
And because this is all gold jewelry, and the value of nisab is over 19,000.
It's 19,000 now, so this.
So no, for her, right? Because
This year it's no.
this year it's the last year it was yes, but this year the 15,000 in gold jewelry that she owns is less than 85 grams market value today, which is just over 19,000. So this is still within her fitra. This is still within her 85 that she's allowed to own. So she does not pay zakat on any of her 15,000 jewelry. Only he does. Okay? Do you have a question? Can't hear him, sorry. I still can't hear him, sorry. You're all the way at the back. Yes. Yes. But, okay. If you're saying, I said that we should use the nisab of silver, which is 2,300. But this is gold jewelry, and women are allowed to own gold jewelry. The first 85 grams of gold jewelry that a woman owns, she does not pay zakat on. The first 85 grams. If this was $15,000 worth of silver jewelry, then maybe she could pay on the silver. Right? But the gold jewelry that she has, she can own that. And she doesn't pay zakat on it, as long as it's below the value of the nisab, which it is. She has gold plus her money? I'm sorry, I didn't. She has $5,000 cash? Okay. She still would not count. He's saying, what if she has $5,000 cash on top of the gold? She still was not going to pay zakat on that jewelry. A woman can own 85 grams of jewelry, of gold jewelry, and does not pay zakat on it, period. Right? And in this instance, she owns less than 85 grams worth, so she doesn't pay zakat on it. Yep.
If Ali's jewelry is only silver rings, then it is excluded.
If Ali's jewelry is only if he has $5,000 worth of silver rings, no. The Prophet ﷺ had one silver ring. Men are allowed to exclude one silver ring from their zakat calculation, but I can promise you if he has 5,000, it's more than one silver ring, so no.
But in principle, if a jewelry is in silver, then it is still 100%.
If jewelry, to be honest, any male-owned jewelry should be included in zakat, because it's not really within our fitrah to wear jewelry as men, it's within a woman's fitrah. That's why women are excluded from having to pay zakat on the first 85 grams of jewelry, gold jewelry. But for men, we don't have that exemption, because we're not really supposed to be wearing jewelry. So any jewelry that we own, we pay zakat.
I guess that's because in your slide you said silver ring is excluded.
Yeah, one silver ring can be excluded, because the Prophet ﷺ did wear one, but he wore it more as a stamp as a signature than jewelry. But I've seen some scholars make the exception because he did wear it as an exception, but the general rule is all jewelry for him. That was the one exception, because he wore a ring, but he didn't wear it as jewelry.
Watches are considered as jewelry.
Watches are considered accessories, they're not considered jewelry.
Even expensive
Ones, they're not considered jewelry, they're considered accessories. Yeah.
And just to clarify on the whole, when we said 85 grams, it doesn't have to be specifically gold, like just of the amount of the gold. So for example, let's say gold is now 20,000, give or take. She only needs to be above the 20,000, not necessarily gold-wise, like even cash, for example.
No, we're just talking the weight of jewelry.
Just specifically.
Yeah, because he's asking the question like, is it the value or the weight? Is that what you're
Exactly,
asking?
like, does it have to be gold or just the value?
That's the value so we don't actually differentiate in the Sharia between quality of carats, like 18 karat, 22 karat. We don't distinguish in that. We go by weight. So 20 dinars, back in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, if you took 20 physical dinars and you melted them down, you had exactly 85 grams of gold. That's where the dinar standard comes from. Is that was the amount of gold in 20 dinars, which was 85 grams. That's the weight that we go, that's the measurement that we go by, is by the weight. So you could literally weigh the jewelry. If a woman has 85 grams, she's not paying on it. Doesn't matter if it's 24 karat, 10 karat, 8 karat. We don't distinguish.
Yeah,
it's on the weight.
But what I meant is not necessarily that the weight of the gold. It's like, let's say she doesn't have any gold.
She has
20K of cash. Right?
Then it's not, we're talking about two different things then.
But that's what I'm saying. Does it have to be specifically gold, or does it have to be like an amount of gold of like 20K in cash, for example?
Okay, now I'm confused.
Sorry. So for example, you specifically saying a woman has 85 grams.
Of jewelry.
Exactly, so that she doesn't have
that ruling is jewelry. Yes.
So only jewelry.
85 grams of jewelry. Okay. That's what we're talking about. Not cash.
Perfect.
Yeah, not cash. Okay. All right. RRSPs and RESPs. Okay, so Bilal has $155,000 in his registered retirement savings plan. Amina has $85,000. Bilal has $3,500 in an RESP, registered education savings plan, and Ismail has $3,500. What are we going to do about Ali? Let's deal with him first. He has $155K. Are we going to include this in his zakat calculation?
Yeah.
Yes? How much?
He has to fix 25% or 80%.
Correct. He's either going to, yes, he includes it in his zakat calculation. He's either going to pay zakat on 25%, using the current assets approach, or on 70% using the withholding tax approach. That's correct. What about Amina? Same thing? Same thing. What about Bilal? 3,500 RESPs.
Depends about his age.
So we said that Bilal is 9 and Ismail is 15.
No,
So for Bilal, no, how come?
he's too young.
He's too young. He's below the age group. Bilal is not going to pay zakat on his RESPs. What about Ismail? He's got 3,500 in his RESPs.
Still young.
15? No, 15 is over puberty, I think. I think puberty is like 13, 14.
So if you consider that his age is coming, so yeah,
He's 15. I think it's Salah, I think, is following at that point as well. So he would have to pay zakat. And if we're adopting the silver, which is 2,300, he has above that. Right? So we would have to consider this. Locked-in pension. He has a locked-in pension of 148,000, and she has a locked-in pension with her employer at 60,000. Are we going to include these? No, because they're locked. We can't access them. And same thing goes with the RESPs there. Okay. GICs, guaranteed investment certificates. He has interest-based investments. You're also going to try and guide your friend Ali towards investing halal and avoid riba. That's one of the advices you're going to give your friend Ali. Okay? So he has GICs of $30,000. What is he going to do? So first, you're going to advise him not to invest in the riba-based investments. But the second is that yes, he still has to pay zakat on that as well. Same thing with his wife. Ali has a card collection worth $3,500. Okay, he has maybe Wayne Gretzky's rookie card in there, or something like this. Okay, is he going to pay zakat? Is he going to include this in his zakat calculation?
yes, depends if it's for sale, he has to pay zakat. If it's just for his collection.
Very good. Any other answers? Yeah.
If it is for investment, then he has to pay. If it is of course personal use,
Very good. We both said the same thing. Exactly correct. If it's for commercial purposes, if he has it with the intention of this is an asset that's appreciating, I'm going to sell it for a profit, then yes, he pays zakat on it. If it has sentimental value to him, it's his personal thing that he likes to look at. He's not going to sell this because he likes his memories of Wayne Gretzky when he was a boy or whatever. No, he doesn't pay zakat. Okay? There's a rental property that's worth $450,000. It's in Ali's name. It has a mortgage on it of $275,000, and all the rental payments go to his wife, to Amanda. She gets the rental payments. Okay? So, are we gonna? What's the ruling for Ali on this property? Sorry. I can't understand this. Okay. Well, what about, okay, but that's Amana. Let's deal with Amana in just a moment. Right now, the property is in Ali's name. He owns the rental property. It's worth $450,000, and there's a mortgage of $275,000 on there. What is Ali's zakat on this property? Or what's his zakat consideration on this property?
so it's a business too, right? This property, and he's not making any money, so there is no zakat on it. But his wife, she's just receiving the money out of somewhere. That is learning. She has to pay zakat. She has to calculate it in the zakat calculation.
Okay. Any other answers?
That's correct.
Yeah, this is correct. So this rental property of Ali is it's a tool used for craft. He's not flipping properties, he's renting it. Right? It's a long-term asset, so he's not going to pay zakat on the property itself because it's what he's using to generate his revenue. His wife, however, is receiving the money from this. This money is zakat. This money has to be paid zakat on that she's receiving. And there's a bank loan on that as well. We're not going to do the whole calculation. And you're also going to advise your friend Ali to avoid borrowing on riba from banks and to not get into debt with riba. This is a very important advice you have to give your friend. So usually we do the whole calculation, but I want to leave it open as well for any questions or any other discussion that you guys may have. Yes?
So this relates to owning a rental property with Islamic financing. So in Islamic financing, if the property is owned by an Islamic financing company and you are the partner, you receive a rent, I assume that you will only pay the zakat or the percentage of the rent that you use. Let's say that you have got an investment from Islamic financing and they own 40% of the property and you own 60%. After all the expenses, the money that you get is 60% of the rent. So I'm asking
Okay, so brothers asking the question that in an Islamic finance model where I'm assuming you're describing some type of musharaka arrangement where the Islamic financier is providing, I think you said 60% of the finance, or 40% of the financing, you're owning 60%. But in that instance, the rental payments are still coming to you as the property owner. Like in a musharaka, whether it's a musharaka mutanaqisa or just strict musharaka, either way it's the same. That the ownership of the property is in the name, so the property is the name of the client, that represents their ownership in the property, and the financier, the halal mortgage company, their ownership in the partnership is represented by a 0% charge mortgage against the property. Now, all of those rental payments, if he's renting the property out, all those rental properties are coming to him, to the owner. And separate to that, he has to make payments to the partnership. Right? Those are his monthly mortgage payments, which is going towards part of his equity in the partnership and part towards his partner's profit in the venture. Right? But in that instance, the revenue is still, the rental payments are still coming to him. Those rental payments are not being diverted 60-40 towards that's not the case. So just to put this in mathematical terms for you, for example, if he had a $300,000 halal mortgage with a halal finance company, and he had a $1,500 monthly mortgage payment, $1,500, okay? And then he rents the property for $1,800 a month to a tenant. That $1,800 a month is coming to him, 100%. And then he takes from that and pays his $1,500 mortgage. It's not like that $1,800 is being split 60-40. That's not the case. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so there is I read that when we are calculating, we can remove your monthly expense. Right? So in this scenario, can I remove 1,500 that I'm paying, only at 300?
Yes, correct. So I was asking, when you're calculating your zakat, you're allowed to remove your monthly expense. So in this hypothetical situation, the monthly expense was $1,500. So when it's your nisab date, you would subtract your current payments, your $1,500. Maybe you also had school tax and property tax due. Maybe you also had maintenance due on the property. All these are expenses, current expenses that can be deducted before you calculate your final nisab, your final zakat calculation.
It will only be for 1 month.
Yeah, current assets is one of them. That's correct. Yes.
We know that everything is near.
Pardon?
For Zakat, we have the retention first. So if we decide that our nisab is going to be for silver.
For what, sir?
Silver.
For silver. Okay, you're taking the silver nisab.
So for the women, it's 15,000 jewelry. If the year it's
So the brother's asking the question, if we're adopting the silver standard for nisab, which is like $2,300, and if the woman in the situation owns $15,000 of jewelry, which is greater than the value of the silver nisab, should she then not have to pay zakat on the value of that jewelry? The answer is still no. And the reason for that is whether we're taking the gold standard or the silver standard, a woman's right to own 85 grams of gold jewelry is independent of whichever nisab value we choose to adopt, gold or silver. So whatever we choose to adopt, separate from this, the woman's right exists that she is allowed to own up to 85 grams of gold and does not pay zakat on that jewelry. Right? Even if she takes the gold, if she takes the silver, it makes no difference. She can still have that, and she does not pay zakat because that was within her fitrah. That's within her right that she can have that and not pay zakat. But yeah, good question. Any other questions?
Let's say you have a land, let's say on the market, and you're trying to sell it, but it's not sold yet. That's also a zakat on that.
Good question. Maybe someone else can answer this question. But I ask, say you have a land that you've put for sale, you've listed the land for sale, but it's not sold yet, and your nisab date rolls around. Do you pay zakat on that land? So you're saying no because you haven't received it yet? Okay. Yes? Why? It's a commercial property.
Is it considered like a good loan that if the market you are expecting to sell, you should pay zakat, and if the market is not very good, and then you do not?
He's asking, do we consider it like a good loan if the market's good? We can sell it. If the market's not good, we're not going to sell it.
Yeah, intention change, so he has to pay zakat.
Intention changed, so he has to pay zakat. So, what did we say about, what did the Prophet ﷺ tell the Sahaba that they had to pay zakat on? It was items that they designated for sale. That which was designated for sale. Inventory. So if you've listed the property for sale, if you've listed the land for sale, then yes, you would pay zakat on it. Because it's listed for sale.
Okay, now a follow-up question. Let's say for that example, a percentage of the 2.5% of that, they don't have that. How do that?
Very good question. So, the person said, what if I don't have 2.5% of the value of the land that I have for sale? Okay? Technically, you have to borrow to pay. You still have to pay it, but you have to borrow to pay your zakat in that instance. And this is why there's a separate course that I teach on halal wealth management and halal investing. And this is one of the things that we cover in that course, because part of wealth management in Islam is you must factor in your zakat obligation. Right? We cannot invest all of our money into things that are illiquid, that we can't get liquidity from. And then when our zakat date rolls around, we don't have enough liquid cash to pay on all of our investments because it's all tied up. Like if I have, $5 million and I've invested it all in commercial real estate, and now my zakat due rolls around, and I don't have 2.5% of $5 million because it's all in the land. Well, I have two choices. I can borrow to pay my zakat, or I need to sell one of my properties to free up the cash. These are my two choices. Right? But we have to consider that some of our wealth does not belong to us. It belongs to others. They have a right. And we have to, when we're investing and managing our wealth, we have to maintain liquidity so that we can pay our zakat when our date comes around. So this is a really important consideration. I'm really happy you asked that question. Thank you. That's a very, very important point.
Can we
have to pay all the expense, the expense before paying zakat. So, for example, we have $20,000 rental, and we have taxes, and we have the
Maintenance,
and
insurance.
we have just $3,000. So we pay just
Yeah.
$3,000.
Yeah, that's right. But I was asking the question, like, for rental properties, say we have, like, say, $20,000 in rental income that's come in, but then we have property taxes, we have insurance, we have, maintenance, we have all the other expenses that maybe came to $17,000, right? So yeah, you would pay zakat on the $3,000 that you have after expenses. That's what you would pay zakat on, right? Very good question. Any other questions? Rulings on cryptocurrency. So it depends on the intention of whether you're buying the cryptocurrency for long-term or short-term. And then on your nisab date, you would pay accordingly. It's either going to be 100% or it's going to be on 25%, the current asset. Well, actually, no. Sorry, that's not true. It's going to be 100%. Because crypto is not considered stock ownership. There's no current asset in a crypto. Crypto is considered a commodity, right? So it's almost like you bought gold or you bought something else, but it's not. You would pay on 100%. There's no current assets. There's no 25% in crypto. Yeah. Any other questions? Is crypto considered halal? So there are two cryptos that are considered halal. These are Bitcoin and Ethereum. These are considered halal. The rest are not yet considered as halal. The AOFI guidelines, AOFI is a global governing body that establishes rules for halal and haram or financial matters are concerned. They have not officially released a ruling, but because Bitcoin and Ethereum have taken on such wide adoption, right, and are used in some cases like currency, in other cases like commodities, these two are considered halal. The rest are not. RSP question, yeah. Yeah, good question. So say the brother saying that he has a RSP through his employer and he has no control over the investments. It's decided by the employer or whoever the plan administrator is. And he noticed that there's some banks and other non-halal securities in that RSP. So what should you do about that? I mean, this is not halal. So one thing that you can do is you can transfer out a portion of your RSP. There are companies now, alhamdulillah, that offer halal wealth management. Right? There are some. I work for one of them. I'm not here to promote that company, so I'm not going to say the name. But there are options you have for your RSP. And what you can do is you can keep your group, keep the account open with your account, but periodically you just transfer some of it out, so that portion is managed. Transfer the majority of it, right? And that way you can keep it, but then you siphon it off into something which can be managed in a halal. Any other questions? Yes, sister. I'm sorry? Yes, I do courses on halal investment. Yes, so sister's asking me about a course on halal investment. I do courses on. I've done them actually here in the center and I do them elsewhere as well. So sisters asked me directly, so I'm not like plugging you or anything, but I work for a company called Sharia Portfolio Canada, and we provide free education seminars on halal wealth management, halal investing, and we also have clients that we manage assets for. We're actually the first company like this in Canada that's Muslim-owned, Muslim-managed, providing the service. And we're part of a group of companies which is the largest in North America. We have 5 different publicly traded funds that are all halal. We're currently managing just north of $3.3 billion US in assets under management that are all halal. So if you'd like to learn more, I can share my contact with you, or there's a website, shariaportfolio.ca, and you can learn more about us there, inshallah.
What about CD account?
Okay.
The restriction, the cotization of employee owner and employee.
Like a group, like a, what do you mean?
It's group cotization.
Group?
CD, it's
City?
CD.
CDO.
In French, we say it régime par cotisation
Déterminer, c'est une pension. It's a pension fund. Yeah, pension is what we discussed here. So if it's locked, then there's no zakat because it's like a CRI, un compte de retraite immobilisé, ou like a defined benefit plan, a defined contribution plan. If it's locked and you can't access it, then there's no zakat on it. Does that answer your question? Is that good? Inshallah khair. Any other questions? Okay. So, jazakallah khair for your participation, for all of your amazing questions, and for sticking around. May Allah Ta'ala bless you all. And may Allah Ta'ala make this the beginning of furthering your knowledge on this topic. This was just an introduction. There's much more that we can learn. Hopefully we can all walk away with the basic understanding of how we can calculate our zakat personally, maybe even help our friends, inshallah, but continue to expand our knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me. Anything that I said that was good is purely from Allah and only from Allah. Any other things that I said are from me, and I ask your forgiveness. Please make dua for me, inshallah. And jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Subhanallah.